most important thing we can do right now is to focus on the future and make sure that we are prepared for whatever challenges may come our way.
Tonight, the world holds its breath as missiles fly over Ukraine. NATO scrambles to respond, and global tensions reach a breaking point. One wrong move could spark a conflict no one imagined. The first morning after the missile escalation, Europe wakes to sirens, panic, and headlines screaming across every media outlet. According to reports, multiple strikes were detected in eastern Ukraine, hitting strategic military targets and alarming civilians. NATO immediately declared an emergency meeting, mobilizing forces and intelligence teams. In this unfolding chaos, the West stands as the defender of peace, the hero, while Russia's bold aggression acts as the villain, challenging stability on the continent. The tension is palpable. Civilians rush to shelters, families check on loved ones, and governments scramble for information. Satellite images show rockets leaving Russian territory, crossing borders, leaving trails of smoke against the dawn sky. Experts warn that escalation could spiral if no diplomatic solution is reached. Every move, every statement is now under microscopic scrutiny. Social media lights up with hashtags like #NATO alert and #global-security, spreading awareness and anxiety simultaneously. Memes, reaction videos, and citizen updates flood feeds, showing both fear and solidarity. NATO's leaders are portrayed as the heroes of this story, making calculated decisions under extreme pressure. Briefings describe troop placements, radar monitoring, and defensive preparations. Meanwhile, the villain, Russia, is not just striking physically but strategically, testing the West's patience and response capabilities. Analysts debate whether this is a show of strength or a test of global resolve. Amidst this chaos, ordinary citizens become part of the narrative. Stories of courage emerge, people helping neighbors, first responders risking their lives, journalists reporting under dangerous conditions. These human elements emphasize the stakes beyond politics. Lives are literally on the line. The hero versus villain framing becomes clearer. NATO represents protection and calculated restraint. Russia embodies disruption and audacity. Yet, even as emergency alerts echo through European capitals, an invisible tension lingers. Diplomatic channels buzz with calls, emails, and emergency summits. Governments weigh sanctions, military mobilization, and public statements carefully. The clock ticks, and every moment feels loaded with potential consequences. The stakes are global. A misstep could ignite a larger conflict. And the world watches, breath held, waiting for the next move. The first chapter closes with this heavy uncertainty, setting the tone. The missile escalation is just the beginning. The villain has made its first bold statement, and the hero must respond. But how and at what cost? That question hangs over every decision, leaving viewers eager to see what happens next. As NATO convenes, intelligence reports reveal the extent of the missile strikes. According to verified sources, several military bases were targeted, infrastructure damaged, and civilian areas narrowly avoided. The West's response must be swift but measured. NATO's leaders analyze satellite images, radar logs, and field reports to craft the next strategic moves. Meanwhile, Russia doubles down on rhetoric, framing the strikes as defensive maneuvers, dismissing international concern. This framing reinforces the villain role, using propaganda to manipulate global perception while escalating military tension. In contrast, NATO emphasizes restraint, diplomacy, and defense readiness, positioning itself as the moral hero striving to maintain peace despite provocations. Public anxiety rises. Social media serves as both a tool and a weapon. Videos of missile trails, shelters, and evacuation routes flood the internet. Memes of panic, bravery, and commentary circulate rapidly, creating a shared global narrative. The storytelling becomes cinematic in itself, humanity caught between aggression and protection. Citizens look to leaders for answers, while leaders weigh actions against potential consequences. The West must balance action with diplomacy. Military analysts debate deploying missile defense systems, while diplomats push for emergency summits. Headlines flash across news screens worldwide, reinforcing suspense. NATO on high alert, Russia pushes boundaries. Global leaders meet in crisis. These narratives ensure viewers remain hooked, combining hero-villain framing with real-world stakes. On the ground, first responders work tirelessly. Hospitals brace for casualties. Rescue teams navigate smoke-filled streets, and journalists document the unfolding crisis. Ordinary citizens take extraordinary actions, helping neighbors, distributing supplies, and sharing vital updates. These human stories amplify the cinematic quality of the narrative. The hero exists not only in governments but also in everyday acts of courage. As tensions rise, viewers are left with questions. Will diplomacy prevent further strikes? Can NATO protect civilians effectively? Will Russia continue its aggressive campaign? The chapter closes on a cliffhanger, with missile alerts still ringing, intelligence teams monitoring every movement, and world leaders preparing for decisions that could reshape international relations. The hero must act, but the villain's boldness looms large. The morning after the escalation, Europe is on high alert. NATO's missile defense systems are activated across multiple regions, ready to intercept any incoming threats. According to reports, radar stations have detected increased military activity near the borders, signaling that Russia is testing not just NATO's capabilities, but global resolve. The villain's audacity grows, and the hero's challenge intensifies. Satellite footage reveals coordinated Russian missile tests and troop mobilizations, creating an atmosphere of tension thick enough to feel in the streets. European capitals buzz with warnings, emergency services on standby, and citizens glued to live news feeds. The cinematic tension is palpable. Every siren, every alert, feels like a heartbeat in the story of hero versus villain. Within NATO, leaders debate carefully. Should they respond militarily or lean further into diplomacy? Military analysts provide risk assessments, while diplomats urge caution, emphasizing the potential for escalation. The balance is delicate. One wrong move could spark global catastrophe. In this narrative, NATO embodies courage and measured strategy, the hero fighting against a villain who thrives on chaos and intimidation. Civilians share stories that emphasize human resilience. Families coordinating evacuations, neighbors helping one another, journalists reporting from high-risk areas. Social media amplifies every story, connecting viewers across the globe. Hashtags like #StandWithUkraine and #NATOAlert trend worldwide, reinforcing public awareness and creating digital solidarity. Memes and commentary provide tension relief while keeping engagement high. Meanwhile, the villain continues to push boundaries. Propaganda broadcasts show Russia portraying itself as defending its national security, while ignoring international condemnation. Every calculated move adds drama to the story. The hero's response is measured. The villain's aggression is relentless. The chapter builds suspense as NATO begins coordinating joint military exercises, reinforcing strategic positions, and updating emergency protocols. European nations stand together, united in the face of uncertainty. Yet the world still wonders. Will this escalation stop, or is it only the beginning of a larger conflict? The chapter ends on a cliffhanger. Radar detects another missile launch, and NATO must decide: intercept or let it pass. The stakes are higher than ever, and viewers are left breathless, wondering how the hero will respond to the villain's next move. As tension peaks, global leaders convene virtually to assess the crisis. Emergency summits bring together diplomats, generals, and intelligence analysts. According to reports, debates are intense, one side pushing for a strict defensive stance, the other advocating for measured diplomacy. The cinematic stage is set, heroes and villains meeting across tables, screens, and maps. Russia's moves continue to dominate headlines. The villain projects confidence, issuing public statements portraying NATO as overreacting, while internally preparing more tests and maneuvers. NATO, embodying strategic heroism, must counter without triggering further aggression. Every word, every decision, carries the weight of potential war or peace. Meanwhile, civilians continue to share their experiences. Families near conflict zones report fear, but also stories of resilience. Volunteers organize shelters, supply chains are improvised, and journalists risk their safety to broadcast updates. These human elements deepen the emotional stakes, making the story relatable and cinematic. Intelligence reports indicate potential escalation points. Maps show troop deployments, missile paths, and vulnerable locations. Analysts emphasize that diplomacy and rapid military readiness are both essential. The tension builds as viewers imagine the what-ifs. What if a miscalculation occurs? What if the villain pushes one step too far? Social media buzzes with theories, opinions, and calls for action. Hashtags trend globally, while news clips replay missile launches and NATO briefings. This public engagement adds another layer to the narrative, showing the hero versus villain struggle not just in governments, but in the eyes of the global audience. The chapter ends with a suspenseful cliffhanger. A major city receives a warning alert. NATO leaders face a critical decision: respond immediately or wait for confirmation. The villain's actions continue to pressure the hero, keeping viewers glued to the story and hungry for what happens next. The final chapter unfolds as NATO executes a combination of defensive and strategic measures. According to verified reports, missile defense intercepts prevent several potential strikes, while diplomatic channels remain active, negotiating back channels with Russia. The hero's strategy becomes clear: measured action, protection of civilians, and unity across nations. The villain, meanwhile, escalates propaganda campaigns, framing NATO's defense as overreach and preparing the next phase of intimidation. The cinematic tension peaks. The world is on edge. Every missile, every press statement carries life or death weight. Civilians continue to play a crucial role. Volunteer networks distribute supplies, families evacuate, and journalists report under dangerous conditions. Their stories amplify the hero versus villain narrative, reminding viewers that courage exists at every level of society. Social media reactions continue to flow, reinforcing engagement with hashtags like #GlobalSecurity and #StandWithUkraine. NATO leaders convene one last time to finalize measures, balancing deterrence with diplomacy. Decisions are deliberate, showcasing heroism rooted in strategy, patience, and courage. Russia's aggression looms, but NATO's response sends a clear message: escalation will be met with defense, not panic. The cinematic resolution emphasizes moral reflection. The hero, NATO, allied nations, and civilians, stands resilient, embodying courage, unity, and justice. The villain, aggression, destabilization, and reckless strategy, is countered, though the threat remains. The story closes with both a lesson and a warning. Vigilance and courage are essential, and global citizens must stay aware. The video ends with a call to action. Subscribe for real-time updates on global politics. Comment below. Who do you think is the true hero in this crisis? Share this story and help the world understand the stakes. The hero versus villain narrative remains compelling, suspenseful, and cinematic, leaving viewers engaged, informed, and inspired to act.